My name is Tony Gallo. I'm the managing partner for Sapphire Risk Advisory Group. So I speak across the United States on cannabis security, actually heading to LA right after this to speak at another event. And I learned over the last 4 years that I've been in the cannabis industry that you want to follow a lawyer, a doctor, or a scientist. It makes it a lot easier for me to speak after you've heard everything from scientists and doctors and everything else under the sun. So how many people came here to learn about THC and CBD and CDD and CCC and all those things? Okay, I'm not that guy, all right? That's not what I do. How many people here are thinking of entering the cannabis industry and getting a license? Okay, I'm that guy. So what we do is we're the only cannabis security company in the United States that doesn't sell a product. We actually work as a true consultant would, and we work with owners in 3 areas. We work on them to help them get their license, and to get a license you need to fill out an application. In order to fill out an application in every state, including Florida, 20% of your grade is going to be based on your security plan. So if you don't have a good security plan in the application, you don't get a license. Second thing is, once you do get a license, we help with your build out by working as a building contractor would or a general contractor would, by bringing in the right vendors. And then the last is policies and procedures, how to keep you open once you are open as a dispensary or a grow. So I'm going to go a little bit over how to design a security plan. Quickly, just so you know, the cannabis industry continues to grow. In 2016, it's going to reach almost $7 billion. In 2021, projected sales are going to be over $20 billion. And in Florida, they're projecting in 2020 about a $1.6 billion industry or continued growth. I think 2020 is going to be the year, the turning year for a lot of the businesses, which is good because you're going to be pretty much advanced and ready to move. I think there'll be cannabis business in Florida prior to that, but I think 2020 is really going to be the year it's going to take off. A little bit about Florida. There actually is security requirements that we can learn from. We learn from other states, their security requirements. We just did 12 applications in Pennsylvania, and we're doing 2 in Texas right now. And if you look at Pennsylvania and Texas, they're pretty similar. And Pennsylvania took it from Maryland, and Maryland took it from New York, and so forth and so on. So Florida is not going to reinvent the wheel. They're going to do a lot of the same. So when you start working on your plan, you want to look at what Florida is currently doing. And here's a passage from the current Florida. To ensure the safety and security of its premises and any off-site storage facilities, and to reduce diversion or theft. So what the state is saying to you is when you apply, they want to understand that you're going to have a system, a security program, that someone is not going to steal cannabis from that location or marijuana. Because that's what the state's primary goal in every state is they only want to give licenses to people who deserve licenses and are going to be responsible for it. If you look at some of the timeline, January 3rd, the rules came out. They're probably going to come out something in July 3rd having to do with the finished rules and implementation. When you look at when you want to get involved in the cannabis industry, primarily the rule of thumb is about 6 months prior to the application coming out. So going back to Pennsylvania, applications, or go back to Texas, applications came out on March 1st and they were due March 30th. On March 1st, you can't decide you wanted to be in the industry. You won't have enough time. The Pennsylvania application itself was about 3,000 pages long. Florida would be about 4,000 pages long. So be ready for that. Keep that in mind. The security plan alone is 60 pages long, just the security plan. So if you go back 6 months from July, you're pretty much there. You're a little bit behind the curve. We're already working with Florida potential business owners. So in application rules, probably things will be in October. So figure once the application is submitted, you'll probably take you about 10 months before you open for business. So rule of thumb is about 16 months from the concept to going forward. So some of the things that you want to put in your plan, Obviously, the concerns have to do with cash, merchandise theft, anything that would make it in the news. The state hates bad things that happen in the news, especially with things that they regulatory, such as firearms, pawn shops, liquor stores. We handle a lot of high-risk businesses, and we get a lot of that response. If you lose a firearm in a store, you're in trouble. If someone steals 50 firearms from your store, you're out of business. You're closed. Florida's not going to tolerate that. Same thing with cannabis. So when you look at your security plan, you want to design a security plan for your cannabis application. You want to provide a security plan that is safe and secure, safeguard and grow, and you want to develop a comprehensive audit. If anybody is thinking of getting into the cannabis industry and you have a cell phone, this might be a good slide you may want to take a picture of, or at least write down, because that's your plan right there. Those first 3 points are going to explain to you where you're going to be telling the state of Florida. Ready? So, next slide. You want a facility plan. Facility security has to deal with what is the floor plan going to look like. The one on the left is a dispensary. The one on the right is a grow facility. Where are you going to put your cameras, your access control, your safes, your alarms? You don't get a license unless that floor plan is perfect. Remember, you're going to apply for licenses in a very small scale in Florida, and you're going to be up against some real big heavy hitters. Your only advantage is making sure that what you're applying for is got a good chance of getting approved. They grade your plan. They'll grade your whole plan and your whole application. So in a physical security, you want to have how many cameras you're going to have, type of cameras, line of sight, recording of the cameras, where the cameras are going to be positioned. There's 7 areas that you need to make sure your cameras are positioned. You may have 50 cameras, but 7 have to be done. The state will tell you that in their application. Where the cameras are going to be positioned, they call it line of sight in your application. Product security, how do you store your product? Do you store it in a safe, a vault? How are you going to protect it at night from break-ins? Is it going to be in a cinder block room wall? If it's a grow facility, is it going to be in a TL-rated safe? One of the big deficiencies that you'll see, and one of the worst securities in the state and in the industry right now, is in the state of Colorado. The reason why is when Colorado came out with their laws 4 or 5 years ago, they didn't have things in place. So if you take the Mississippi River and you look at the cannabis industry, east of the Mississippi is growing and more progressive. West of the Mississippi is more established, but when it comes to security, their security is a little outdated. And if you look in the cannabis industry in Colorado, you'll see that they have gun safes. If you decide to work with a vendor and he recommends a gun safe for your dispensary or grow, you have a really bad security consultant and you should fire them immediately. Let me tell you why. Gun safes are designed for guns. Gun safes are not designed to secure product. Gun safes are designed so that little Jimmy doesn't open up the gun and take the gun out of your closet at home. There is no security in a gun safe other than a little metal around a box, and inside that little metal is sheetrock. Why is there sheetrock? Because it's there to prevent a fire from damaging your guns. So a lot of people didn't realize that. They went to Costco, they went to other places, they bought gun safes, and now Colorado has that on their back. You won't be allowed to do that, but to give you an idea of why. So here's another reason why you want to have a gun safe. Gun safes increase the heat by 8 degrees and the humidity up to over 60%. The mad scientist just told us what happens if you have high heat and high humidity. You have shitty cannabis. So Colorado has unsecured shitty cannabis, just so you know. Not all of them. Those who actually had to buy TL-rated safes learned that. What do you do in a dispensary? You look at it like a jewelry store or a pawn shop or a firearms store. You want to secure your cannabis in cases that don't have that are not shatterproof, so that when someone comes in and tries to smash your case during business hours, they're not able to get in very easily. So you're going to design your dispensary to have jewelry cases, if you don't know, or display cases that have shatterproof glass on it. You're going to have various security equipment. You're going to have access control. The blue door is what you would put on your back door so someone doesn't pry it open. Keypads, alarm systems. You're going to show the state that you deserve a license. Policies and procedures are important. How do you prevent diversion? How do you store your cannabis? How do you sell your cannabis? How do you dispose of your cannabis that needs to be disposed of? How do you train your staff? What is your culture of honesty? 70% of your losses come from internal. How do you prevent that from occurring? The state's going to want to know this. They're going to want to see your plan. They're going to want to see your operational plan, your emergency plan, your employee handbook plan. When it comes to robberies, they don't want robberies, because then they have to explain that they gave you a license and you got robbed and it's not a safe place and you should have never given them the license to begin with. They don't want robberies. Remember, 87% of those robberies are not violent. So the thought process of trying to get into a gunfight with a robber is not what the state wants to hear. They want to know, how are you going to prevent cash robberies, product robberies? The goal of getting the robber out of the store as quickly as possible. What are you going to do about that? Remember, as the longer they stay in the store, the chances of losses increase, whether it's any kind of retail business, and you are now in the retail business, or the chances of product being stolen increases. So if you have a break-in, you don't want them staying in the location long. If you have a robbery, the same thing. They want to know your emergency plan. What happens if the power goes out? How do you keep your video system from working? In Florida, they're going to want to know what your hurricane plan is. What happens if a hurricane hits? Do you have a bug-out bag? What's your plan when it comes to any other disturbance that might occur? How do you make sure that your product in a dispensary is secure if the police are not able to respond for a period of time? Remember, we talked about employee theft. 70% of your losses in the cannabis industry are from employees that are going to steal from you. It's a fact. You deal with it. Family members are bad. Friends are worse. Actually, friends are bad. Family members are even worse. So keep that in mind. We've had a lot of situations where your bud tenders have been involved. Remember, you're putting a lot of product in front of a bud tender. There's a lot of temptation. Again, though, it's not unique. Could be a firearms store, it could be a jewelry store, it could be a tobacco store, it could be a lottery store. There's temptation there. Keeping in mind, how are you going to prevent, and they call it in the plan, your diversion prevention program. Keep that in mind. So we talked a little bit about developing a culture of honesty, having good hiring, having well-defined plans and open communication, zero tolerance. All of that you're going to write into your application. You're going to, again, the goal is to get a license. The goal is to explain to the state, you deserve to have a license. You deserve, because your plan is better than the plan that someone else submitted, that your plan is thought out. We just did a floor plan design with a grow facility in Texas, and when we got the floor plan, it was apparent that they had no way of getting out of the store, which they had to redesign their floor plan because they could have people come in, but they can never leave, and that would be a bad thing that would occur. So how do you reduce your risk? Again, awareness is the key. Many of these solutions come from other industries. Don't worry about reinventing the wheel. You know, it's very difficult to tell someone you're not unique, but really, your industry is not unique. You're selling a very high dollar, desirable product with a large amount of cash. If I substituted that for jewelry or firearms or liquor or any of that, a lot of your security is going to be very similar. Tobacco or something like that. How do you control this behavior? The state's going to want to know. What's your prevention program? And also then what's your detection program? You want to keep in mind that your security doesn't have to be the best in the world. If you look at the floor plan on the left, those are too many cameras. Even the state's going to go, I don't think so. That is a bad video security vendor that you hired if he tells you that he wants those many cameras. Now, in the state of Washington, it's very interesting. Anywhere where cannabis can be stored or brought to has to have a camera. So in the state of Washington, on a pole, you have to have a camera on all four sides of the pole. Underneath a stairwell, if cannabis can go underneath there, you have to have a camera there. Florida won't be like that. Florida will be following more of the East Coast where you have to have a robust camera system, but it won't be to that level. On the left, when you do design your security programs, that was a good camera on the left at one time until they put the monitor in front of it. That kind of defeats the purpose at that dispensary. The one on the right is a chain. It's my favorite chain in the world. We went out to a grow facility and they chained their back fence. And I pointed out to the owner, I don't think I can I? I pointed out to the owner that the zip tie on the chain, the plastic tie that he used, the bag tie that he used, defeats the purpose of the chain. He explained to me that it was a really good chain, and I did agree. At one time, it was a really good chain. But the bag tie kind of takes away from it. So some thoughts. A large percentage of your state application is going to be based on your security plan. You don't get a license without a good plan. It's 20% right there. You'll be going up against 90 scores and 95 scores. Design a well security plan is not unique. Similar security programs could be shared from other high-risk businesses. And your security plan has to be a state of mind. You have to project that your grow dispensary, that there's a security mindset in there, that you're not just trying to give them 3,000 pages or 50 pages of a security plan that doesn't have any value. And I just took a 50-minute presentation and I moved it into 20 minutes. This is another grow. This is in Oregon. The manager thought he did a really good job. Very secure door, great metal door, great lock on the door. The sheetrock wall next to it kind of took away when he lost $40,000 worth of this cannabis from his location. So I'm going to open up to any questions that anyone might have, or anything that they might want to know about how to get a license. No questions?
Yes, hello, Mr. Gallo. Is there a required number of actual security personnel that you have to have on site?
No. So depending on how the state writes it up, and the only state right now that I see that requires on-site security is Massachusetts and California cities. My guess is that Florida will not do that. Okay. They'll follow a Pennsylvania, Maryland, where you'll have a guard presence maybe during business hours. They could change, and they could go with 24-hour guards, but it's not the standard I'm seeing in the 16 states we've dealt in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Very quickly, you guys, I assume, cover nationally at this point, and also I wanted to find out how involved are you in the actual security plan itself, in terms of do you guys consult on that yourself and help put those plans together?
Right. So we deal from we've had clients from Hawaii to Pennsylvania up to Alaska who's gotten licenses, and the question was, what kind of security do we do? And like I said at the beginning, we'll help write the security plan for you to get your license. Once you actually are open, we'll help, or once you do get your license, we'll help with the actual physical security build out of it. We don't sell any of the equipment. We work as your consultant. And then once you are open for business, we'll help you with your day-to-day processes, your cash management, your employee awareness program, your robbery prevention program. So the expression in the industry is seed to sale. will take you from the security industry from seed to sale. And we have clients that fall throughout that. We just did 12 applications in Pennsylvania. We have clients in build-out in California, and we did strategies in New Mexico. Well, thank you very much.